You've got Moss Eyed at the time, and then I'll tell you about that headband and me trying to be defiant. You've got to understand that it's who I am is a really, really, really introverted person who works really, really, really hard at putting myself out there.
When I was a child, I was taught to be seen and not heard. To be resilient, dignified and determined. I was raised with the belief that good always triumphed and that we would overcome. I remember feeling defiant. I fought back the tears and the taunts in the playground. I fought to speak well and open my mind. I remember feeling determined. The liberation of the 60s and 70s meant that I could walk in spaces that my parents couldn't. I didn't walk though, more tiptoed. I could be seen, but people weren't ready for me to be heard. I remember feeling courageous. So I marched with the feminism of the 60s and danced through the 90s as a new romantic. I skirted the rage of punk rock, never forgetting the soul of Aretha while hitting the high notes with Whitney. The Bodyguard was the soundtrack for my life, and I fantasised about finding my strong he type to my strong she type. Madonna was claiming female sexuality, and Oprah had declared we were every woman, and I was feeling euphoric. But the passage of time reminded me that romance ticked to the biology of a clock that I had no control over. So, the princes and the frogs, they came and they went. I lived and I learned, and I remained hopeful that I would reach that Hollywood finale, and I remained optimistic. But when I tested positive, my biological status wasn't the only thing that changed. I lost my place at society's table. It had always been conditional. I was a bad person. I hadn't learned at school. I hadn't understood the rules. I hadn't got it right. So God was punishing me for leaving the church, and society was punishing me for leaving my perch. I looked to the heavens for answers, but I remember feeling silenced. So by the 1990s, stigma and discrimination loomed large. I didn't know any other illness that could leave you feeling so vulnerable, so afraid, and so isolated. I remember hearing the things they said about people who had AIDS, how they got it, the slurs. I remember the shame. So when my son turned to me in the supermarket car park and asked me, "Mum, have you got HIV?" I understood his question, and I was ready with my answer. "Son, don't worry about me. I'm doing just fine. I'll always be there to look after you." And just like that, something shifted inside of me, something inside so strong, and I felt resilient. HIV has changed, and so have I. My story isn't over, and now I share it with others. I remind them that we are deserving of life and we're deserving of love. We cry, we defy, we love, and we support. We're still in the shadows. We're beginning to be heard, but we're not yet seen. But I'm determined to change that. Together we will overcome. And I'm really hopeful. Thank God for Jesus.